reminder as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age. The soul, similarly, passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change, since every living entity is an individual spirit soul, not the body. Each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjun on account of death, neither for Bhishma Dev nor for Dronacharya, for whom he was much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old age to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering according to one's work in life. So Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least life in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment for material existence. So in either case there was no cause for lamentation. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the supersoul and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. The Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground of the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable against the principle of the supreme, souls being unchangeable. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, the fragmental portions of the supreme exist eternally, sanatana, and are called akshara. That is, they have tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same. Krishna says to Arjuna, O best among men, person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress is steady in both in certainty, eligible for liberation. Avinasi tu tad vidhi yena sarvamidhim tatam vinasam avyayasya na kaschit kartum arhati. That which pervades the entire body you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasures of the body in part of a whole. This spreading of consciousness in the body is limited within one's own body. The pains and pleasures of one body is unknown to another one. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual spirit soul, not the body. And the symptoms of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. This soul is described as 1/10,000th part of the upper portion of a hair point in size. The Sweta-svattara Upanishad 5.9 confirms Balagras satabhagasya satadha kalpitasya cha bhago jivasa vigyaya cha chanantayatya kalpati. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts and again each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts. Each such part is the measurement of this dimension of the spirit soul within every body. Similarly, the same version is stated. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms which are measured as 1/10,000 of the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of spiritual soul, is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atoms. And such atoms are innumerable. This very small spiritual spark is the basic principle of the material body, and the influence of such a spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spreads throughout the body. This current of the spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is a proof of the presence of the soul. Any layman can understand that the material body minus consciousness is a dead body, and this consciousness cannot be revived in the body by any means of material administration. Therefore, consciousness is not due to any amount of material combination, but to the spirit soul. In the Mudaka Upanishad, it is said, the soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. This atomic spirit soul is floating in the five kinds of air within our body. Prana, Apana, Vyana, Samana, and Udana is situated in the heart of every living entity and spreads its influence all over the body of the embodied living entities. When the spirit soul is purified from the contamination of the five kinds of material air, Prana, Apana, Vyana, Samana, and Udana, its spiritual effulgence, influence is exhibited. The Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling the five kinds of air encircling the pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of the material atmosphere. So the constitution of the atomic soul is admitted in all Vedic literatures, and it is also actually felt in the practical experience of any sane man. Only the insane man can think of this atomic soul as all-pervading Vishnu Tattva. The influence of the atomic soul can be spread all over a particular body according to the Mundaka Upanishad. This atomic soul is situated in the heart of every living entity, and because the measurement of the atomic soul is beyond the power of appreciation of the material scientists, some of them assert foolishly that there is no soul. The individual atomic soul is definitely there in the heart along with the supersoul, and thus all the energies of the body movement, all the energies of the bodily movement are emanating from this part of the body. The corpuscles which carry the oxygen from the lungs gather energy from the spirit soul within the body. When the spirit soul passes away from this position from our body, the activity of the blood generating fusion ceases. Medical science accepts the importance of the red corpuscles, but it cannot ascertain that the source of the energy is the soul. Medical science, however, does admit that the heart is the seat of all energies of the body. Such atomic particles of the spirit whole are compared to the sunshine molecules. In the sunshine, there are innumerable radiant molecules. Similarly, the fragmental parts of the Supreme Lord are atomic sparks of the rays of the Supreme Lord, called by the name Prabha, or superior energy. So whether one follows Vedic knowledge or modern science, one cannot deny the existence of the spirit soul in the body. And the science of the soul is explicitly described in the Bhagavad Gita by the personality of Godhead. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to end. Therefore, fight, O Arjuna, kill their body. That's my opinion. The material body is perishable, destroyed by nature. It may perish today or tomorrow. It may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But the spiritual soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of being killed. As mentioned in the previous verse, it is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimension. So from both viewpoints, there is no cause for lamentation about the body, because the living entity as he is cannot be killed, nor can the material body be saved for any length. Material body has to be destroyed. Spirit soul is eternal, never can be killed, saved by any length or time, or permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spiritual acquires this material body. So the spirit soul in the material world acquires material body according to his work, and therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized in this body as long as we have this body. In the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because he is a part and parcel of the Supreme Light. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not hurt or killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as will be evident from subsequent verses, nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution, full of knowledge and full of bliss and eternity. The spirit soul is eternal, never to be killed. What is killed is supposed to be the killed is the material body. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is Ma himsyat sarva bhutani, never commit violence to anyone. Never does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority, killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state as well as by the law of the God. However, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion is not whimsical. For the spirit soul there is neither a birth nor a death at any time. He has not come into human being, does not come into being, and will not come into any being. He has not come into any being, does not come into any being, and will never come to any being. He is unborn, spirit soul. It's eternal, ever existing, and is primeval. He is not slain, is not destroyed when the body is slain. Even within the body, the spirit soul does not touch the material body. We are the soul. Within our body, we are the soul. The soul is within our heart. It's surrounded by 5 kinds of life air, Udan, Apan, Vayan. But the spirit soul itself is spiritual. It has its own space. It does not touch the material body. It's just the effulgence, the extension of the consciousness is touching the body. The extension of the spirit soul, spiritual soul, that's what we are. We are spiritual being. So the extension of the spirit soul, we, is the extension of the spiritual being is the consciousness. So the consciousness is what touching the material body, but the spirit soul itself is not touching the material body. The spirit soul within the body, in the center of the heart, is a spiritual person originally from the spiritual world. We are eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, constitutional part and parcel. Jiva, we are Jiva, we are the soul. Jivera Holera Krishna Nitya Das. We are eternally a part, Sanatana, eternally, are part and parcel of Krishna. We are originally belong to a spiritual world. We are from there. Due to our separate interest in misusing a minute independence, the Lord has casted away us in this material world, impregnated in the material world, in material atmosphere, under the modes of material nature, ignorance, passion, and goodness. And we have a body which is produced of a material nature, ignorance, passion, and goodness. And by the law of the God. It's a matter, it's a dead matter. So the spirit soul is suffering within this material world and even within this material body. So the consciousness is what? The consciousness within our body, it what perceives the misery, happiness and unhappiness, misery in this world. So when the consciousness is hurt, the soul feels. So the real food for the soul is devotional service to the Supreme Lord, so that the soul at the time of death, by absorption in the Supreme Lord, back again, return to this original position, which is the eternal service of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual kingdom. So Mukta Linga means free. Mukta means free, and Linga means Mukta means free, and Linga means the subtle form, mind, material intelligence, and material false ego is attached to the soul. So when the soul is purified by the performance of devotional service, by execution of devotional service in our life, steady execution of devotional cultivation, then the time of death, the soul is so purified that the Vishnu Dutas, Krishna's devotees, will come and take the soul away. And then the soul will have its own spiritual body. And then we can see our spiritual form. We can see our spiritual form in here, in the material world. When the devotees perform devotional service, come to the highest level of devotional service, bhava or prema, then we can see our siddha roop, the spiritual body. So qualitatively, this atomic fragmental part of the spirit soul is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called a steady, kutastha. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformation. It takes its birth from the womb of a mother. Then the body remains for some time. The body is talking about the body. Then it grows, produces some effects. Gradually it dwindles, and at last it vanishes, finishes into oblivion. Just like now we're getting old. The day you take birth, we getting old. It's the body. The soul, however, does not go through any such changes. The soul within the body remains the same, because it is najayate miryate va kadachinnayam bhuttava bhavita. It's eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge. It's eternal means one place, at one size, one age. It's ageless, the soul. It's unborn, unchanging. Soul never change. It's unborn and no age. The soul is not born, but because it takes on the material body, the body takes its birth. So how the soul comes into the body? When the parents conceive the baby, prepare to conceive the baby. So it is described in the last chapters of 3rd canto Srimad Bhagavatam, the teachings of Lord Kapila Muni, the movements of the living entities. So when a parent desires to have a child, that desire, that thinking power produces a matter within our body, consciousness. And within that matter, the soul enters. The minute matter, the soul enters, and that matter is a baby form, baby's material body form. And that form expands, because the soul enters that small flesh. The soul enters that flesh, and that flesh begins to grow, and it forms the shape of a body, a human body, or any body of any living entities, birds and humans or aquatics or anything. The soul is not born, but because he takes a material body, the body its birth The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. That means when the soul enters that small flesh of matter, that does not mean that soul is coming out from that body, certain mother's body. Soul was eternal, it just enters there. Anything which has birth also has death, and birth. And because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, and future. He is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace of history of his coming into being. Nobody knows when the soul came into this material world. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth of this soul. So only we imagine that the soul came when the history of the time the body was born. But the soul came before that. Soul, that same soul which enters the body is eternal. It was existing before the body grows. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The body grows, the body takes birth, then grows, stays, and dwindles and vanishes. But the soul remains same within the body. The so-called old man therefore feels himself to be the same spirit as in the childhood. He remembers, O youth, the changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree, nor anything material. The spirit soul has no byproduct, like from the body we eat and we pass stool, urine, and so many things comes from this body. So many things goes. Medically we take so many things inside our body and we take out so many things. So that means anything which we eat is a matter, is a material. Food is also a matter. So we take that matter and we pass it out. But when that food is sanctified, offered to the Lord, it becomes a prasadam or sanctified food that purifies the soul as well. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children. What are the byproducts of the body? Children, because it's coming from that flesh. A mother's body is a flesh. The child also come from that flesh. The body, namely the children, are also different individual souls. So within one body, there are many, many spirit souls because there is insects and germs also within our body. Owing to the body, they appear as children of particular men. Oh, I am the son of certain and certain person. The body develops because of the soul's presence within that soul. But the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. The spirit soul does not go through birth, growth, stays, dwindles or vanishes. Only body does. Na jayate miryate va vipaschinnayam kutaschinna bhuva kaschid ajo nityo sasoto ayam purano. The meaning of the purport of the verse is that same as in the Bhagavad Gita. The soul is full of knowledge, full of bliss, always. Consciousness. The soul is full of consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the spirit soul within the heart, where he is situated, the spirit soul, one can still, if we cannot imagine or find the spirit soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of the consciousness. As long as the consciousness, we are alive, we are speaking, we are moving, we are alert, we are thinking, we have movement in our body. As long as the consciousness is there, the body will be steady. So the presence of the soul simply by the presence of the consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to the clouds because the clouds are covering the sun, or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, permanently. And we are convinced that it is there for daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all the bodies, all the living entities, there is consciousness because the presence of the spirit soul. whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the spirit soul, however, different from the consciousness of the supreme soul, because the consciousness of the supreme soul is all knowledge, complete knowledge, aishwarasya, samagrasya, viryasya, yasasasya, all knowledge, most beautiful, most powerful. He is in supreme state, not minute. So the supreme consciousness is all knowledge, past, present and future. He knows about past, present and future. But the spirit, individual soul, we only know about now. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. We can forget and make mistakes. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. So we are lost forever. Now we have to take shelter of Krishna to be enlightened back again to the normal state. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, Vibhu Atma. So we are the minute spirit soul, and the Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is Vibhu Atma. Both the super soul, Paramatma, as expansion of Krishna, and the atomic soul, Jiva Atma, are situated in the same body. The God is within our body, next to us, within the same tree, within the same heart of the living entity. And only one who has become free from material desires, when all our material desires are gone, as well as the hankering, lamentation and bewilderment, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, can understand the glories of the spirit soul. We only can understand that we are a spiritual being when all our contamination of material attachment is gone. And that's the hardest work. Arjuna, as it will be close, the following chapters, the Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Arjuna forgot that I am the spiritual being. So he had an argument with Krishna. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened. So Krishna enlightened Arjuna. Enlightened, or by a help of a spiritual master who opens our eyes. O Partha, how can a person know who knows that the spiritual being is indestructible, eternal, unborn, immutable, kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Krishna is explaining Arjuna that O Partha, how can a person who knows that the spirit soul is a person who knows that the soul, spirit soul never destroys, and it's eternal, it's unborn, unchanging, immutable, can kill anyone, because the soul never to be killed. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests within a person's knowledge. Although the justice of the peace awards a capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed, because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. So the codes of Manu Samhita, the codes of the law of God, is that Krishna is telling Arjuna to kill all the family members, because the body is only killed. And when their body is killed, they get liberation and they will have a spiritual body. And if you do not kill on my order, when the Supreme Lord says to kill, that's a purity, that's devotional service, and that's a bhakti, there is no sin. But Arjuna was bewildered because he was attached to the bodily, he was on the bodily platform, and he was attached to the bodily of Dronacharya, Bhismadeva, Kripacharya, and all his family members. And Krishna wanted to change their bodies by the power of devotional service, so they change their body, this material body which is a dead matter, and attain a spiritual body in the spiritual kingdom. So Krishna was telling Arjuna to liberate them, kill them, shoot the arrow, they will die, material body will be dead, and they will liberate. So the soul within Bhisma Pitama, the soul within, the soul of Bhisma Pitama, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, has to go and attain the spiritual body. So do it now. Kill them. Tasmat sarvesu kalesu mamanusumra yuddhacha mayu arpito manobuddhi mamabashasya samsaya. Kill their body. That is, I am telling. If someone else's orders you to kill Kripacharya, Dronacharya, Bhishma Pitama, then that's sin, because they are not the Supreme Lord. So when the Supreme Lord says to kill a chicken and eat, that's not a sin. That's a devotional service. But he does not say like that. He says only to Arjuna on a certain time, because that's the word of the Supreme Lord. So anything what the Supreme Lord says, we have to practice to do it, and that's devotional service. And anything which is not sanctioned by the Supreme Lord, and if we do it, like eating meat, gambling, illicit sex, intoxication, any kind of manipulation of this material nature, exploitation, is not sanctioned by the law of God or by the God. And that's implicated, that will implicate us into a sinful karma, heavy karma. And that by that, the result of that karma will be perpetually taking birth again and again in this material world, in this material body full of misery, birth, death, old age and disease, and anxiety and pain and agony. So when the Supreme Lord says, follow my order, follow my law, follow Bhagavad Gita, the instructions given by the Supreme Lord is Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, follow Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita is the song of the Lord, the teachings of the Lord. By following Bhagavad Gita, we become free from the material conception of life and material desires gradually, because following Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, we become conscious of Krishna. Krishna means Bhagavad Gita is the teaching of Krishna, and by following those order and regulating our life and performing bhakti, the instructions of the Supreme Lord which is given in Bhagavad Gita, when we follow that, then we become conscious of Krishna, because he is the one who gave these instructions. Oh, I am waking up in the morning, oh, I'm chanting, I'm thinking about him, manmana bhava mad bhakto, I'm remembering him, I'm just entire day I'm just involved in thinking of Krishna. So he gave this order in Bhagavad Gita. He said, follow this order. And at last, and then by following daily on our routine state, scheduled way, we become purified, and our consciousness also come to the state where we become spiritually consciousness. We become spiritually conscious, alert, that there is a spiritual world, and we are the spiritual being, and the Supreme Lord is a spiritual person. Everything is spiritual, we see. Even the material, even in living within the material world, we see everything as spiritual. We turn the material energy, our consciousness began to vision that this material energy is also a spiritual energy. And then we utilize this material energy in the service of the Supreme Lord. What is that material energy? Our material consciousness get purified to come to the state of spiritual consciousness. Then any material, we are dealing with the material energy every day to day. Our body, our activities, what we touch, we feel around us is all material energy. So that material energy becomes Krishna conscious, becomes spiritual consciousness. So we use everything practically for Krishna. Our speech, our mind, our body, thinking and activities is all becomes Krishna consciousness. By following the order of Krishna, Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is a human manual book to liberate ourselves to the state of spiritual consciousness. And that spiritual consciousness is mode of pure goodness, Suddha Sattvic, pure goodness. And on that state, pure goodness only comes by mam chayo avyavichare bhakti yogena sevate, by constantly striving for the spiritual state. Means constant cultivation of a spiritual activity. Then a devotee, a person comes to the state of goodness, he performs the bhakti on a devotional mode of goodness. The best place to perform the bhakti, the best place, the best state actually, the best consciousness state to perform the devotional service is in the mode of goodness, because devotional service itself is a pure goodness, and we perform it on a mode of goodness, not ignorance and passion. We rise above mode of ignorance and passion. We come to the stage of mode of goodness. So mode of goodness is a congenial, is very right platform to perform devotional service. It makes easy to perform devotional service. And by constantly performing devotional service in a mode of goodness, then we rise to the mode of pure goodness, which is a Suddha Sattvic, pure goodness. And on that state of pure goodness, that's the place where devotees feel Krishna. They can feel Krishna, all presence everywhere. And he is on that platform. So we got to strive on that platform. Our only perfection is to strive to come to the pure goodness. To avoid the lower modes. And how to avoid the lower modes? We have to strive constantly in our daily activities to remain conscious of Krishna by performing devotional service, thinking of him, man mana bhava mad bhakto, in our mind, in our heart. We pay obeisances, we surrender our consciousness, all our daily consciousness, all our activities, we surrender to Lord Vishnu. Vasudevam Sutam, Visuddha Sattva. We surrender our consciousness, activities, thinking, feeling, willing, dealing to Lord Krishna, to Lord Vishnu. That my eating is for you, my Lord. My decoration of my own body is for you. My thinking, my planning, my strategy, my ideas is all for you. How? Whatever the Guru's plan is, the spiritual master's desires is related with the Supreme Lord's desires. The Supreme Lord and the spiritual master, their thinking, their feeling, their willing is similar. So when we come and absorb ourselves in the consciousness and activities and directions and the instructions of the spiritual master, then that is connected to the Krishna's instructions to become a devotee of the Supreme Lord, Hare Krishna.